Good afternoon, Haiti Oropesa with Florida You Judge, along with Stephanie Pointer and a special co-host, Michelle Williams. We're going to be discussing this afternoon, of course, special guest also a candidate for Hillsborough Public Defender in the 2024 election cycle. Lisa McLean is joining us, and we're going to do a little bit of a discussion on this race. And before we get into talking with Lisa, I wanted to show some receipts, some exhibits, and because I've been following this race. I used to work at the public defender's office in Hillsborough for about a year before I transitioned to Pinellas Public Defender and worked there till 2006. At that time, I went on my own. But in any event, so this is important. It's important. It's God's work. Indigent people are being serviced. They're being served. They cannot afford a private attorney. So the taxpayers fund that bill, as they should, as we all should, because it's justice, it's due process. They're being prosecuted, and they need representation. And so we're going to be talking a little bit about that. But her opponent, it's gotten a little divisive. And so recently I was able to see that her Lisa's opponent, Rocky Brancato, boasted. Actually, I wanted to first put out that he's been invited. I emailed him in fairness because I want this platform to be fair. He was invited to participate in this conversation, as was Patrick Montega, who endorsed Rocky Brancato through his publication La Gaceta, and he was invited too. I had a telephonic conversation with him this week regarding things that I am about to make mention of. But Rocky Brancato on his campaign web or social media page boasted the endorsement of La Gaceta, which is very known, especially in the Tampa area. It's like 100 years old. Patrick Montega is the owner of this publication, as was his father, his grandfather. It's a very old paper, and a lot of people, or I don't know what quantitatively how many people subscribe. It's a print publication, but nonetheless, he does every election cycle since I was receiving the paper. He makes endorsements in this race. He's made the endorsement in this race. He's given his endorsement to Rocky Brancato. So when this came up, I decided to, because word on the street is that Patrick Montega, as the owner of this publication, and he's looked at as being either an independent journalist or that he should be an independent journalist, because he has dual roles, that of a journalist, and then also he does consulting to candidates and mailings and print with their mailers. So I went on to the expenditure, which voters can do this. It's made public. You can, if you care to really dig deep into races, you can go and see what the expenditures are of the specific candidates. I did once Rocky said that he had been endorsed by La Gaceta. I went ahead and I went to see the expenditures, and I found that his expenditures included 5 total $20,000 from Political Victory Company. I didn't know who Political Victory Company was, but I went ahead and I copy pasted the address connected to this company, and I found that company, the owner, is La Gaceta Publishing. Political Victory Company is owned by La Gaceta Publishing, which is owned by Patrick Montega, who, not surprisingly to me, gives the endorsement to the candidate that paid $20,000 in consulting fees to that company. So I had a conversation with Patrick Montega this week. I had texted him about this when I was doing the research. It was a pleasant conversation. I said what I was going to say about what my position is. This is a platform that's why I called it Florida You Judge. We just want to put facts. I don't want to tell people what to believe, what to process through their filter of values and principles, you make of it what you will. I just put out the information. That is the truth. Rocky Brancato boasted an endorsement of a publication that his campaign paid $20,000 to. So let's just start there. Michelle, unmute yourself, please. And what commentary, if any, do you have in regards to this issue?
First of all, I want to say thank you, Attorney Oropesa, for this platform. Florida Judge, you have been, this platform has grown tremendously over the years, and I'm just so happy to see that you are still being the coal miner's daughter, chiseling away at the criminal justice reform platform. To Lisa, it's an honor to be in your presence again. One who I have been getting to know on her campaign strides throughout Hillsborough County and throughout the city of Tampa. Thank you for being on the show. Miss Porner, boy, I'm telling you, I call that's my little firecracker right there. Oh my God, Stephanie, every time I see you at city council, whether I'm there or looking at you on YouTube in the comment section, I'm just like, boys, she is continually to give them the fire, just keep putting brimstones on them. Just keep putting brimstones. Haiti,
thank you, ma'am.
Just one thing.
Proud to stand next to you.
Yes, ma'am. Haiti, can you do me one favor? Can you pull back up the Sunbiz page for me real fast? I want to see if my eye. Okay, so they haven't filed yet for the renewal of their filing. So we need to find out whether or not they accepted money.
Okay, but what do you think about this? About what I just presented?
Well, I'm saying, because it makes a lot of sense, because you can't collect money under a business names according to somebiz.org if you have not filed, or if your business or even fictitious name is in error, has not been renewed.
I understand, but nonetheless,
okay,
that's what the expenditure sheet shows that Manteiga was paid. What are your thoughts on that? That he pays that entity, which is filed under a fictitious name, $20,320.14. What are your thoughts about that? A publication making an endorsement when they're the readers. When I read something, that's why look, and I'm going to say this: every single one of us, are responsible for fact checking and doing our own research. Because if you're just looking at a publication and seeing their endorsement and relying on it as a reader, because you're thinking or assuming this is an independent endorsement, it's up to you to do all. The internet is something else. No one has an excuse like, oh, I didn't know, because you have the ability. For the most part, I think people could go. What are your thoughts on this? A publication, a news publication, telling its readers, I've vetted both candidates. I have vetted both candidates. Where's that noise coming from? And I think this is the better candidate, but not disclosing to the readers. Disclaimer: I was paid $20,000 in consulting fees from this candidate that I am endorsing. The readers don't know about that. What are your thoughts about that, Michelle?
Well, the whole thing to me is disingenuous. And the reason why I say the reason why I state that is because I always had the highest respect and held the La Segueta as like literally the last Mohegan that we had, in the community, where you could actually still get a paper. And after seeing this, that the only reason why you even endorse a political candidate is because they paid you for this endorsement, that it says a lot, not only about the candidate, but it says it a lot about, the paper itself, for printing it in the paper, because a lot of people still, behold that what the La Segueta says in the community to be factual and withstanding. I don't like the fact that, it's been done. I've had an opportunity to talk to Mr. Brancato. I don't like a lot of the things that, he has said publicly and privately about things,
Okay, but we're gonna keep it on this. We'll talk later on, because we're gonna continue having commentary from you after this. But just on that, first of all, I don't think that getting consulting fees in that amount is a bad thing. I don't even think that it would have been bad for him to get those fees and endorse in his publication if he would have told his readers, FYI, blah, blah, blah. Because I believe some readers do look at specific newspapers, publications that they subscribe to because they think, you know what, they're going to steer me right. I don't really know. They've done their research as journalists. They've vetted this person, that. And so we're going to talk about his analysis, his actual endorsement analysis. And I do want to say congratulations, by the way. And again, I said this at the start of the broadcast, but I will say it again. Patrick was invited to participate in this broadcast. He has come on this broadcast in the past. He was invited to join us to put his 2 cents and his side, as was Rocky. I invited Rocky to be here this Saturday at 1:00 and for him to join the conversation. He's running, I believe should, if he wants to be heard on this matter. I want to congratulate Lisa, and she did get the endorsement of the Tampa Bay Times.
Yes.
The Tampa Bay Times endorsed her, and I don't believe, maybe Lisa can answer. Did you pay anything to the Tampa Bay Times? Consulting fees? No? Okay. Well, so that's a publication that's been popular, been around for a long time. And they didn't say that part at the top, they didn't make that commentary, by the way, just so that everything's clear. And up on the up and up, that's me. I wrote that in the black part, been trying to promote Lisa as a candidate because she's been criticized, and even in the endorsement that we're about to do an analysis on, about her wanting to, should she win, whose noise is that?
What is it? What noise is it, Haiti?
I don't know. Okay. I'll unmute you, Michelle, once I bring you on to talk. You're going to stay on, but I'm going to mute because I think it's from there. But you're there. Once you talk, I'll unmute you. Is that fair? Okay. All right. So Lisa has been vocal as part of her platform that she wants to make sure that persons that have money to pay for their own attorney, they should be able to pay that. She's been criticized, not only in the endorsement, but Rocky Brancato said that was really the only thing that she's focusing on. That's huge. That's huge. Because if there are people that can pay for their private attorney, taxpayers shouldn't pay. That's true. So I don't know. And not only that, but when you're serving the port, his mentor, the current public defender, Julian Holt, goes up to Tallahassee regularly every year to let the legislature know we need more money. Look at all these cases we have. She pitches assistant public defenders. I was a public defender for almost 7 years. Okay. Assistant public defenders are overwhelmed with cases. What happens when that happens? You're not having the more time to be able to dedicate to poor people. So if there's people that are able to pay their way, they should, because that reduces the burden on the assistant public defender. Okay. And not only that, it lessens the burden on the taxpayers. I can tell you, I paid my tax bill this year and I wasn't happy. And so people, unless they absolutely have to pay taxes, they shouldn't. So I don't understand why La Gaceta is criticizing her for doing that. This is what exactly the Gaceta says. At the end, go ahead. Who said something? Go, Stephanie.
Hey, can you, or Lisa, either one of you, can you explain what the process is for actually qualifying for a public defender versus you self-paying?
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. So when you seek the services of the public defender, you're required to fill out what's called an affidavit of indigency. And that affidavit has been promulgated by the Supreme Court. It is a statewide affidavit that is used in every circuit in the state of Florida. That affidavit goes into typical things that you would expect it to go into when they are trying to ascertain whether or not you can afford to do something. What are your assets? What are your liabilities? How many people do you have in your household? And things like that. And then there is, what's the word I'm looking for? There are parameters about, well, if it's one person, then this is how much you can and cannot make. And if you have a family of 3, this is, these are the numbers that you have to meet. So that is what's initially done by the prospective client of the public defender's office. It is then reviewed to some extent by the clerk's office and by the courts. Ultimately, the court makes a decision about whether or not a public defender will be appointed to a particular individual.
Let me ask you a question, because here's the thing. At the beginning, the statute, does it require, I know that it requires at first appearance when they're arrested for a provisional appointment. Do you think that at that juncture, should persons be filling out those applications at that point or no? Because I've seen clients where they fill that information out, and that's financial information that is otherwise private unless you're applying for taxpayer money to represent you. It's private. So I see cases at times where they fill that information out and with no intent really to stay with the public defender. They're already thinking, I'm going to hire a private attorney. So do they have to file that or fill that out to be provisionally represented for first appearance purposes?
Yes.
Well, okay, very well. There you go. So what happens? Let me ask this. What happens if they say, yeah, no, I'm going to get a private attorney? Then what happens? They don't really have to then be represented at the first appearance.
Well, right. I mean, typically, if that is the case and they know or their family member has advised that they are hiring a private lawyer, in a perfect world, that private lawyer, shows up at first appearance. We are just as welcome to appear at those hearings as employees of the public defender's office.
I understand, but what if they don't have time enough? Right.
Well, there are occasions, I've certainly have seen it where an individual will stand up and say, I'm not interested in the services of the public defender at first appearance. And the court then has the ability to either continue that first appearance or move forward. Because again, let's remember, first appearance is meant to advise a person of their charges and whether or not they have a bond.
Okay. All right. Stephanie, anything else? Michelle? Okay. All right. So let's move on now to the actual endorsement. And I'm going to read through it little by little so that you can respond to the endorsement itself from La Gaceta. While this is what it says, while he admires the way Holt has led the office, he wants to put his stamp on it. One change would be to place attorneys who want to work with juveniles in the Juvenile Bureau. Currently, the newest attorneys to the office are assigned to the Juvenile Bureau as a place where they gain experience. This causes the Juvenile Bureau to have a constant rotation of attorneys. Now, let's address that. I know that we came on because people were saying that he said during a candidate forum where you participated, so did he, that there needed to be no change. Subsequent to that, when he was, I assume, there's been criticism of him saying that there needs to be the change. I think that afterwards, that is a change that was put out there. I don't know that that's a real true change. How do you enforce having a commitment for the rest of your career to stay in juvenile? That's one. But I just want to go ahead and share him saying that there was no change that needed to be done. Okay. Let me stop this right here. So here we go with an endorsement that suggests that he is wanting to make change and that he admires Holt, but he's going to be his own public defender and he's going to make change. And yet he is addressing people at a forum saying that there's no change that needs to be done. Do you want to comment, Lisa?
Well, I think he's had to walk back that comment he made at Tiger Bay, which is what you the clip that you showed, because the idea of change is resonating with the community, and he knows that. He's seen it. You know, my comments, my platform about the necessity for change, the necessity for a complete review of the office, the fact that, you know, when you've been doing anything a particular way for 30 plus years, you need a fresh perspective. And so in response to that, I think they've had no choice but to address that issue and walk back those comments.
Michelle, Stephanie, anything on that before I go to the next issue, which is the indigency application system that we've already touched upon? Stephanie?
I just want to piggyback just a second, Haiti, off of something Lisa just said, which was key, is that when a system has been in place for as long as it's had, since Julianne Holt's inaugural to the public defender's office in 1992, Lisa will bring forth the change that this community so desperately needs. I remember I just pulled it up in my notes because I when you invited me on the show back in 2013, October the 2nd, 2013, when legal advocacy and advocates were asking for overhauls in the state of Florida in every public defender's office. People thought it was crazy because they were saying how the leadership then and now has still been at the ram of plaguing so many poor defendants who are not getting justice in that office. Lisa will be the breath of fresh air and bring forth true overhaul in that office. That's why I'm supporting her on every platform that I have on social media, that we so desperately need this overhaul of the public defender's office. We can't keep doing the same thing expecting different results. We cannot do it. This is not an attack on Mr. Brancato, him and his person. This is an all-out bringing to the forefront what the public defender's office needs, and we desperately need this overhaul. Lisa will be exactly what this community needs.
Okay, hold on. Give me 1 second here. I'm queuing this up.
I exercise discretion for one reason, and that's
talked about any concrete positive change except for something to deal with affidavits of indigency, which we don't decide. We do not want to represent people who are not indigent, period.
Okay, so I don't know that that's true. And here's why. I don't know that that's true because let me go ahead and shut this up real quickly. I did some research. He's saying we're not involved. In fact, La Gaceta, let's go back to that. La Gaceta says McLean feels that many people who use the public defender's office can afford a private attorney. While the PD's office can't choose its clients since the courts appoint them, she wants to work with the courts and the clerk to see if there's a way to force these people to pay private. Now, so I take issue with that. Patrick was invited. He didn't want to come up. But yeah. She's not trying to force anything. They have a problem with a candidate wanting to make sure the screening indigency process is on the up and up. And for them to say that they don't control, it's not us. We don't do anything. We can't do anything to represent somebody without the appointment of the court or an application being filed and approved. We can't do anything. And yet I did some research, and there's an anecdotal story where the Times reported on this in October 31st, 1996. Julian Holt became the public defender in 1993. And this says the ex-husband of Lopez's former client, who Lopez was the chief assistant at that time. It says a grand jury heard Wednesday how a woman with a Mercedes-Benz and a $250,000 house, meaning a woman of financial means, well off, wound up being presented in court at the taxpayer's expense. Her public defender, a witness said, was doing a favor for his father and never asked whether his client could afford to hire a lawyer. That directly contradicts what Manuel Lopez Jr., chief assistant to public defender Julian Holt, told the Times when asked about his representation in the case of Gail Buckman. Lopez was elected a county judge in September, said that he knew Gail Buckman only as a former client of Holt's, and that he took her case after running into her by chance at the county courthouse. The case related to a charge of aggravated assault in which police said she tried to hit a former husband with her car. Lopez also said he discussed with Gail Buckman an affidavit of indigency showing that she was indigent and thus qualified for the services of the public defender's office. Court records do not show that an affidavit was ever filed or that Holt's office was ever appointed to represent Buckman. So we know that at least one time, Julian Holt, under her watch, was representing a woman that she had previously served, a former client, and there was no affidavit of indigency filed or a court appointment. And that was paid by the taxpayer. So it boggles me that La Gaceta is suggesting that she wants to force people to pay and not get free representation when they are financially able to pay. I don't understand. It boggles me, but we know he got paid $20,000. Okay, Michelle, do you want to say anything? Stephanie, do you want to say anything about this? Michelle?
Yeah. So I'm looking at my notes, guys. So if you see my eyes coming up and down because I got my other iPad right here looking at my notes. So in doing some background on my own with this, we all know that when poor people need an attorney, it's hard to even get good representation through the public defender's office. And to have a woman who had the ability to be able to afford private counsel and be represented by an office that was designed and set up across the United States, just not in Florida, but the United States, to help indigent people who could not afford private counsel and have counsel paid for by taxpayers, it's disgusting. It's disgusting. And this behavior is not going to change unless we get new leadership in this office. New leadership would be to elect Lisa into this office. New leadership and new criminal reform in this office with the overhaul will come with Lisa. I've sat with Lisa. I've talked with her. She has great implications. She has great plans that she wants to implement in this office. I mean, the things that she has, it's funny that, she said we were at a forum, that happens a couple of times a month. And, and I actually heard she spoke one of her ideas. And the next thing I know, I'm hearing it from the other candidate. Like, that wasn't even your idea. So I know you steal ideas. I mean, I don't.
Okay. and you had Rocky Brancato on your show, Stay Woke.
Yes.
You had them. You had both of them on. Okay.
Yeah.
So anything, Stephanie, if you do, please chime in. But so the last thing that I'm going to make a point, I'm going to show one more clip and of something that was said. Yes,
Katie,
ma'am.
while you're
Yes,
doing that,
ma'am.
let me just touch on this issue one last time. You mentioned earlier, and I want to make sure it's perfectly clear to your listeners that this is about the need for an overhaul of this system. And that overhaul, I don't believe it to be an easy problem to solve necessarily, but I've never shied away from tough problems. And it's going to involve everyone that's involved in this system: the public defender, the state attorney, the judges, the clerk's office, to ensure that it's being done correctly. And what you mentioned earlier is why I'm raising this issue. It's not about, let me just see if I can find something to pick on somebody about. It's not about that at all. It's about the fact that this is an important way that we can lessen the burden on the young lawyers in that office that are so overworked, that we want to ensure that they are only spending their valuable and finite time and resources to represent those who truly qualify.
I understand. I agree. I was one of those attorneys that had a lot of cases. And so I get it. Look, I get it. Anybody that works there now or has worked there, they get it. They don't want more cases because they don't have enough time to do them all. So if you're getting people that are trying to game the system by getting services for free when they can actually pay for it, that's a problem. And the fact that part of your platform is that you want to make sure that that does not happen is a good thing. And I'm sure taxpayers appreciate you doing that as well. So let's go on. I want to show one more clip. Rocky Brancato during the
I've been there for 20 years. I know all about the office. I've learned from the best. There has not been a contested election in 20 years for one.
so he says that, and yet that's not true. That is not true. Rocky Brancato has made statements that are inaccurate. Um, Julian Holt was contested had a contest because attorneys, there were people that did not agree with her leadership. So in 2004, it's within 20 years, attorney Will Knight challenged Julian Holt. He did not prevail, but she did have a challenge. So for Rocky Brancato to say that is it's not true. Okay, one last thing that I do want to make mention of the endorsement by a news publication and why they're making the endorsement is that while both Democrats, that's at the end of whoever gets the paper, I'm happy to send this clip to whomever does not. He ends his analysis, Patrick Montega, with while both are Democrats, one item that seems to separate them is that Brancato wants to keep partisan divisive politics out of the office, while McLean seems to want to advocate on more divisive issues. Listen, that is incorrect. If he says that he has been serving as chief operating officer and an assistant public defender when he was brought on 20 years ago under the tutelage of Julian Holt, and so he's learned from the best. That's apparently he wants to make people believe that's what they're trying to do. They've made the claims they're going to try to stay out of politics. She's already endorsed Andrew Warren. Back in 2016, thereabouts, she had something to say in the public court, the opinion of the public court of opinions, and she did. Rick Scott took death penalty cases away from Miss Ayala at that time, gave it to another jurisdiction because she took a position that she was not going to seek the death penalty anymore. And Julian Holt inserted herself politically in a very divisive issue. For him to say that is something else. It's not, it's disingenuous. And then now he's commenting on a divisive issues because he's taking issue with Lisa about one of her mailers. He went on promptly to engage his followers on his campaign page, having issue with something that Lisa put in her mailer. She'll defend women seeking reproductive health care and the doctors who provide it. Now, Manteiga says that she's going to be unable to represent doctors because they're financially well off, and that could never happen. That could never happen, that the public defender would represent somebody that has the financial means to pay their own attorney. Well, yeah, on one occasion, Julian Holt's office did that very thing for one of Julian Holt's former clients. So there's that. But to say that he's saying that his commentary was that she can't defend women's reproductive issues. But I'll tell you what, as has done one of her fellow members in her party, has publicly come out to advocate publicly on positions, even though not in a legal context. Certainly, this mailer, when she's saying she's going to defend women seeking reproductive health care, what she's probably saying as a policy position. I could be wrong, Lisa, and I'll let you react to what I'm thinking. What it could have been. It doesn't mean constitutional officers, people in office, routinely come out, not in a courtroom setting, but in a public courtroom setting, the court of public opinion, say, this is my position. Am I right in that? Or you can react.
So the most important thing to take away from my statements about defense of reproductive health care and women seeking reproductive health care, it's not a partisan issue. It's a community issue. It's a women's issue. This is not politics at play. It's Lisa McLean listening to what the community is saying when I am out and about talking to people. It's listening to the things that are important to the community that the public defender's office serves. This is an important issue to women with whom I've been speaking. I wanted to make it clear to those women and their families where I stand on this issue. And as far as the representation of doctors, first of all, you're right. There's certainly nothing. I think it's reasonable to believe, as Patrick does, that most doctors can afford to hire their own lawyer. But when I'm talking about the defense of women and doctors, I am talking about community defense. I am talking about community solidarity. The role of the public defender's office includes partnership with other agencies like Planned Parenthood, the ACLU, Safe and Sound, the Crisis Center, all of these kinds of groups and agencies that are dealing with this issue, whether they're dealing with it in an educational forum so that doctors and women understand what the law says about what they can and cannot do. There is no question in my mind that the public defender's office needs to be at that table. And that is the point that is being made in my mailer.
Okay, thank you. Mona Judge has reacted in the comment section. Well, he's making those statements because he is his counselor and he's getting paid to help him win, which is really unfortunate, unfair, and quite biased. Now, so look, the thing is this, you're right. You're out in the community because he boasted, oh, I've been in the community for 20 years. And you're right. You're in the community hearing. And look, when you're advocating, even in a community type way, defending, when you're defending or saying doctors shouldn't be arrested for performing an abortion, you're also saying the woman who may very well end up being poor, you don't want them getting arrested, your office having to undertake representation and burdening more, not only as to reproductive rights, where your community discussing this issue, but that too.
Haiti, there's no question that the indigent community is going to be disproportionately affected by any prosecution for obtaining reproductive health care, because you're talking about indigent women who can't afford to fly or drive to North Carolina, for example, to obtain reproductive health care. These are the folks that aren't going to be able to afford to do that. These are the folks that are going to be represented by the public defender's office, and they should know where their public defender stands on this issue and that we have their back.
Okay. Mona also wants to say this is the first time most people are seeing Rocky, who has served for 20 years. We've had his name, but we haven't seen his face. And Mona, I think everybody can attest to the fact that she is in the community and has been for a long time. Gretchen Catherine wants to say, it is very disappointing to learn that Patrick did not disclose that he received money from Rocky's campaign. I trusted La Gaceta and Patrick, but now I feel I can no longer trust their endorsements. And you know what? I think that, again, let me repeat to be clear. If you disclaim, if you say, look, I've done a comparison, here are the comparisons, and this is why I endorse him, and it makes sense intellectually, I don't care with the consulting fees, especially if you tell the reader, hey, I consulted, I got this much money. That to me is complete transparency. That to me is somebody telling me, hey, you should vote for this person instead of this person, and here's why, as a journalist. And then I'm thinking, okay, you're doing this independently. I'll go ahead and I trust you. I'll do it. But if you tell me, you know, by the way, I received $20,000 for consulting. I might think, oh, and do my own confirm what has been said to me. That's it. But whatever. In Florida, you judge. I'm not telling you what to believe, what position to take. You should vet the listener, the viewer, the voter. It is our responsibility. These things happen. It's unfortunate. I received some reaction through commentary saying, well, that's politics. That's the way that it works. And sadly, yes, some publications, that's what happens. That is politics. So because of that, we are all responsible to vet the candidates. We don't make endorsements here. I don't make endorsements. I've made it a rule that at some point I said, I'm not making endorsements because I want to always remind the voter, it's your responsibility to do your research and vet. Are they saying something that's not true? Because candidates sometimes say things that are not accurate, are not true. We have to fact check. We're in an era, the founding fathers created the First Amendment, freedom of the press. They knew the citizenry needed to be informed. They wanted us to be informed that, you know what, the media has gone a little bit cuckoo, a little bit with bias, getting paid, whatever. So we have to go fact check. Okay, we're wrapping up. We're going to come back on again in shortly with Stephanie's going to be her. It's all going to be Stephanie. She's going to be
I think Michelle had something to say.
Okay, hold on. Hold on. Let me see what the beautiful one has to say. Hold on.
Let me just say this, and I say this with my whole chest, that no one in America should be able to tell a woman what she can do with her body. No one. Not a political candidate, not an elected official, not anyone. Though these women have rights, but I find it grossly disingenuous for a man who is openly gay and adopted children to tell a woman what she can do with her vagina.
Okay, well, I won't. That didn't was gonna go that way, but okay, very well. What I find surprising is that on an issue that they most likely, because they're of the same party, should be on the same page on, that he's picking that to try to in some way besmirch her, to hurt her with voters, to what he should be.
They're doing the same thing to Lisa that they did to Jared Smith.
Wait. Let's not get sidetracked. Well, all I'm saying is that the focus should be on the very thing that he doesn't think the focus should be on, is saving taxpayers' money, making sure that the indigent, the truly indigent are not hurt because the assistant public defenders are overburdened with cases. That's what he needs to not be criticizing and say, you know what, that's a thing even with me and my opponent we agree on. So anyways, that's that. You can say the last word. We are signing off. And Lisa, what do you want to leave with the voters with? Early voting has started. The last day to vote is August 20th. Anything you want to leave with the listeners and with the voters?
You know, I just want to make it clear to anyone who's tuned in that communication is key. Knowledge is power. We have got to get to a place where the public defender is truly listening to what the community is saying, what they need, how to change things to make them better, because we're being responsive in those conversations that we're having in the community. That's what I'm trying to accomplish with my candidacy. And I hope that the community trusts that that is indeed my goal and that they support my candidacy. I appreciate you having me on, Haiti. Thank you very much.